Hi, I am Linda Tilson, and as one of the hosts of the Masculinity Unmasked podcast, I am called here today to speak directly into the hearts of the men and the boys joining us in this space. I want you to know that you are valued, you are wanted, you are needed, and not because of what you can produce, not because of how strong you appear, but because of who you are. Underneath the armor, behind the expectations, and beyond the roles that you carry. We know that the world rarely creates the space for the men to be tender, unsure, overwhelmed, or in need of support. But here, in this moment, you don't have to be the strong one. You get to be human. You get to be seen. You get to be appreciated. You get to be received. So, International Men's Day is really a reminder that masculinity is not a performance, it is a journey. It is one of courage, self discovery, healing, and becoming. And today, we are here to honor every man and boy walking this path. Not perfect, not polished, not doing it right, but showing up in whatever way he can. To the men who lead with heart, to the boys discovering who they want to be, to those carrying silent burdens, to those rebuilding themselves from the inside out, we see you, we celebrate you, and we thank you for being here. So that is the sentiment of what we are gathered here for today. And what I'd like to do now is to um, have you turn your attention to our first presenters. And so I'm proud to present AK and Konrad. But first, let's get to know a little bit more about these men. AK is a retired professional basketball player who turned his pursuit and greatness into a mission to awaken others. After competing across 10 countries, he discovered that the true mastery isn't just physical, it's also mental, emotional, and spiritual. Today, as a flow state master coach, he helps hoopers break through limits, step into their power, and play from a place of purpose and peace. His message is simple yet transformative. When you master your inner world, your outer world follows. Next, we have Konrad, and he is not your typical personal development guide. He is a wealth of inspiration and going beyond limits, a master of quantum leaping. Konrad shows people how to upgrade paradigms, see yourself from fresh perspectives, and step into realms where what was previously impossible becomes the next logical and available move. His work blends non judgmental listening and feeling seen, heard, and accepted, just the way you are. During Konrad's saltations, one on one and two on one workshops, you also tap into your own inner wisdom, elevated resourcefulness, and deep flow to unlock next level success, self understanding, and tranquility, and experience the kind of inner peace that can only come from realizing that you are, and always have been, your very own solution. So, with that, I am proud to turn over the mic to AK and Konrad. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Linda, and welcome everybody. I would like to welcome you to this very experience. It's been long in the making, and we are so happy to see you here. Today is a day of celebrating men and women alike. For in a way, we are all in it together. We really are. There might be a distinction between genders, yes, perhaps. And yet, we are all in it together. This is very much a collaborative experience. We are here for you. You are here for us. And together we make the impossible possible. Today's topic is also crossing boundaries of genders. For the topic is that of going from survival to excellence. And as so many families have had their own issues, and that has brought a certain level of difficulty for kids and teenagers alike, those early forming years, they can be anything and everything. They really can. And so many young people, especially, um, their journey is that journey of going from survival to excellence. And if you feel that that might include you, my friend, then you are in a really fine company. Experience shows that even celebrities, people who achieve the top performance in their game, very, very often those people also started, well, in a place that they perhaps didn't wish to be at. It's just the way it is, perhaps. Perhaps there is a higher spiritual reason for that. And yet, they still managed to master themselves and create something magnificent. And so you can too. This notion of starting somewhere and then transcending what seems difficult, challenging, impossible even, is perhaps that very trait of a human journey here on Earth. Realizing that it's all for us, through us, by us. And in that way, we transcend the whole predicament. We realize that it's all about us, so to speak. It's you versus you in the end. Your struggles, your successes, your victories, your downfalls, your failures, and how you embrace it all to finally get on top, to climb the mountain and enjoy the view, only to realize that there is a higher mountain available. It all shapes us into the people that we become. And that journey applies to both men and women alike, with barely any distinction. So we are here today to celebrate those boys and men, girls and women, by the way, because we are all in it together. And what we're going to be talking about today is very much applicable across genders, across countries, across continents. It's a very universal sentiment and notion. And so I thank you so much for tuning in and celebrating yourself. It's an important time, a time of change, and realizing that you can create as much as you want. You really can, because your personality becomes your personal reality. That's why we call it personality in the first place. You create your entire experience, every second of it. Every second is present, so then it becomes your present moment. That's why we call the present moment the pre-sent moment. We send it beforehand, and then it becomes our reality. And there is a power in that, because that means that your choices are important. Every single choice of yours is important. Even now, you can make a better decision, a different decision, a new choice, a fresh start. Right now, today, during this event and afterwards, tomorrow, and in today's time, you can make those new, fresh choices that will lead you from wherever you are to peaks of your own excellence. And this brings to an end this notion of being a victim of life, perhaps a survivor in that negative connotation of it, that the life is happening to you, because perhaps it's not. With that slight twist of the whole story, realizing that everything happens for a reason and for a higher reason too, you can actually put yourself back in the steering wheel, behind the steering wheel, in the driver's seat, and realizing that you have the power to create every month of your experience, every single year, every single decade. What you decide to do, how responsible you choose to be, will define your final outcomes. And a very good indication of it comes from the arena of sport. And this is where AK comes into play here. Literally, pardon the pun. In the arena of sport, this notion of self-responsibility is oh so important. Right, AK? Could you tell us a
Yes.
bit? What is it like? What is it like actually to be a professional athlete?
You know, when I was listening to your words today, one of the things that you mentioned was making choices. And often I get this question of how to make choices, where to go or which team to play for, or, just kind of what next steps to take in life, right? And what came to me, or what usually comes to me, is this sentence that I very much live by that goes, follow your curiosities. So when you make those choices, right, it's again following your curiosities, following your passions. I remember, if I share a story here, I was playing college basketball in the United States, right? And this is already a pretty high level. And I remember before I turned pro, I had this coach, he was very tough on me. Let's put it that way. Tough. Okay. And I was training day in and day out, pretty much from the morning to the evening, 2 to 3 practices a day. And it was just, I didn't get no playing time. Like I literally was sitting the bench pretty much the first couple of years of my college career, and bear in mind that I am from Slovenia, and going overseas to the United States of America was like a big jump for me because I literally went from a place of knowing everyone to a place of not knowing anyone. So everything was foreign. And I literally went there for basketball, and then to not even get to an opportunity to play was very, very tough. But all in all, there was one point in time where he called me into his office, and he said those exact words to me. He said, AK, basketball is not in your future. If I was you, I would focus on something else. you know? So imagine someone who supposedly is to believe in you, right? To kind of give you the rope, show you the way, than to say those words to you. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is back to the first sentence of following your curiosities. Literally, when he said those words to me, my passion, my curiosity for the game of basketball, my love just expanded. And I started laughing and I said to him, watch me. So I guess the whole point I'm trying to make here is, if you're following your curiosities, if you're, following the things that you're passionate about, that excites you, that brings you joy, no matter what other people tell you, even if it's your own dang coach, that is the whole point of everything.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, this is exactly what we are talking about here, right? Let's say that a certain representation of this energy of survival, okay, being told that, you don't belong here. It's not your future. This is not for you. And now, well, we're gonna see very soon what AK did next. However, right, isn't that exactly this type of an experience that shapes a person? This is what then you recall years later thinking, that's made me. It has made me a better person. On the surface, it might seem like rejection, but from the higher spiritual level, it all makes sense. And if this was a call to actually assess whether you, my friend, are ready, whether you really want it, and just how much you actually want it, then this coach has done an excellent job. The words might have been harsh. There might have been a difficulty to embrace them. However, how about you tell us what happened next?
Yeah, well, I remember speaking to you, Conrad, the other day. We had this conversation, and if you remember, this sentence came out. There's always a breakdown before a breakthrough. And this is like something I've been noticing throughout my life, throughout my like different steps of my journey. There's always have been some type of breakdown before I break through. And it was with the coaches, with the people, with relationships. I mean, it's always the similar pattern, So really, really like starting to embracing this stuff, and long story short, to answer your question, I mean, obviously, I still remember the day, when I signed my first professional contract, and it was in France. And I will never forget this moment because, I didn't do it for somebody else, but it felt then good when the coach who said those words to me actually congratulated me on success. So he probably doesn't even remember that the words he said actually were so powerful to me to lit a fire to even work harder for what I truly feel like I'm called to do on this planet. And yeah, ended up playing in over 10 different countries. I literally, traveled the world playing the game I love still to this day. And all of this shaped me into what I do today, which is, help other basketball players master the journey the way I did.
Well, there you have it. When you talk about, turning the table on a whole situation, right? And choosing, because today's big topic will also be that of choice. Choosing a better future for ourselves. This one thing nobody else can do for us. We have to do it ourselves. To choose something better, to choose something more agreeable, more congruent, more cohesive with who we are and what we are. And personally, I like, arenas like sports and business, because in these arenas, it is just so obvious. The feedback loop is so close and closely related with the results. You do something, and very soon you will find out whether it's working or not. However, in other areas of life, it also is very applicable. Parenting offers another option. Here, perhaps you do not see the results straight away, but lo and behold, you're going to see the results of your parenting skills, right, in years to follow. So it really is that notion of self-excellence and self-mastery that we would like to tap into here today as well. If we are choosing our families to incarnate into, we are choosing our environments, then we also get to choose our friends, our traveling arrangements, the countries where we live in, and so on and so forth. Then this lifetime is very much about choice. And yes, sometimes this choice is delivered as a hard message. It can be like that. It can be a very difficult childhood. Yes, it can. It can be a troublesome early education, because schools can present multiple opportunities for personal growth. Yes. It can be troublesome teenage years. Yes, we've seen it. We see it daily on our streets and otherwise. So our society offers so many options for development. We can do so much with our character. We can build our character in oh so many ways, my friends. And the only limit is our very own imagination. And so, whoever you are, whatever you wish to achieve, whoever you wish to be, I'm inviting you to focus on that, my friends. You can do the impossible the moment you decide you can. That's how the game is played. And when it comes to that notion of being in the zone, your own zone of genius, as we call it, there is one tool that will help you there and stay there for good. And that tool is flow, that beautiful state of awareness where you lose the track of time and you become unstoppable. So we sometimes wonder, how do those people, especially sports people, how do they do it? How are they so aware of what's going on? How do they do it so that the game looks so effortless? And AK will have a partial answer for you. What would it be?
Yes, definitely. It's one of the key things, I guess, when it comes to the game of life or the game of sports or the game of basketball in my scenario, and the tool that, truly helped me access this optimal state of human performance, the optimal state of complete presence, if I may speak in that way, is meditation. So this is one of the things that, I've been applying not just in my personal life, but, to the players I work with, the people I work with, and it has done wonders. There's different ways to go about it, but yeah, like it's either guided or more so in quietness, walking meditations. There's different types of it, but definitely one of the keys to do that is meditation.
I'm going to add to that because one of my favorite ways of meditating is actually doing the dishes. Because meditation is very much about presence, about being very present about the current moment, right? Right here, right now. And yes, it can be the typical sitting still, right? Meditation going within. It can be done during a run, especially in nature, but not necessarily, right? It can be done by just going for a walk, walking your dog or otherwise. It can be done whilst doing the dishes. This is also meditation if you choose that. That sensory experience of doing the dishes, the foam on your hands and everything else, it can be a very meditative experience indeed. So meditation doesn't have to be just that sit still experience, because I also know that it's not for everybody. However, there is something to be said about how it helps us to go back to the present moment. Right here, right now is all that matters when we meditate. We don't venture into the past. We don't venture into the future. Now becomes the centerpiece. And in that present moment, the impossible becomes possible. Because what comes to us allows us to make a choice. If there is any input coming in, that intuitive drive kicking in, allowing us some more information, in the now, we can make the choice to embrace that information and transform our very lives. That's why presence is one of those key tools in your own personal development, my friend. Meditation is one of the ways to get there. And in a way, what we call meditation is such a wide phenomenon. Such a wide phenomenon. It encompasses several various states, several various types of brain waves, more alpha, more theta, even delta. Meditation can be so many things. And yet, there is a given type of a meditative state that is really interesting with far-reaching consequences. And that state is a state of flow. That flow is partially a meditation. Yes, it is. We become hyper-aware of what is in that present moment. Whether it's with our kids, with our clients, at work, during sport, during doing the dishes. That flow allows you to be superhuman. It allows you to do the impossible. You become so productive, so focused. It literally makes the impossible possible. And once you learn how to engage into it, how to activate it, it can become a way of life too. It literally becomes your lifestyle. Flowing from one moment to another in total presence. This is where you suddenly see how to resolve your problems. They suddenly lose their power over you. You just know what needs to be done. And suddenly you have all the time in the world to do it. just like that. Just like that. Therefore, I can already see what AK is alluding here to, speaking about that state of flow that shows so beautifully in sport. In sport, entire team is in the state of flow. You can literally see which player is not in his or her flow because they seem to be out of alignment. They are just not playing with the team. And that's not on. When it comes to competitive team sports, being out of flow and alignment is a very selfish thing to do. And usually it leads to a defeat, personal and otherwise. So, AK, how about you tell us a bit more about that magical state of flow?
The word that came to me was the word of surrender. So this is the key here. Okay, so, in order for you to maneuver through whatever the game of basketball, the game of sports, or the game of life throws at you, is to truly surrender, right? To be in that alignment, in that mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical alignment with yourself and with your environment. Okay, and one of the key things you have to do is surrender, right? So that is sometimes easier, harder than it seems. But why we have tough time surrendering? Okay, so I think this is a very important one. Why do we struggle surrendering? Why do we, why we can't do it? Is because we often seem like, or we feel like we have this illusion of control. Okay, we want to control things, right? We want to control the outcomes. We want to control the results. We want to control what the game of life or the game of basketball throws at us, right? And that often comes out of fear. Okay, and one of the, I guess, key things to do there is to truly dive deep into your fears. Okay, what are those fears running into the background, in your background, and then unpack them into, different, I guess, pieces so that at the end of the day, you're able to transcend them and not let them run you, but truly be able to surrender into the moment, into that presence as we spoke.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. Well, I would also add perhaps that another word that one can use for this state of surrender would be that verb of accepting. Accepting what is. I know that surrender doesn't work for some people as a word, as a concept, and that's okay. We all have our own dictionaries. We all have our very own personal definition of every single word. And if surrender lands with you, my friend, that's great. Another word could be that of acceptance. When we stop resisting what is and just accept it, this is where we can make the impossible possible. We suddenly are in the very moment deciding that, okay, maybe I have some problems, yes. I'm going to deal with them, yes. But what matters is the present moment. And this focusing on what is can take us from survival to excellence in a split second. Realizing that even right here, right now, as you are listening to us here, as you are watching this experience, my friend, right here, right now, 99.99% of your problems do not exist. What exists is this very recording you're watching here with us. That's it. Yes, there might be still issues that you want to resolve, of course. However, this state of flow is how you get to where you want to be. That's the paradox. If you're resisting the present moment constantly thinking about your problems, constantly being in that survival state, this is where excellence or even resolving your issues is being pushed back time and time and time again. Very ironically and paradoxically, the more you focus overly on your problems, the more you push away the resolution. However, that beautiful state of flow allows you that instant transcendence of many of your problems, because it brings you to this present moment right here, right now. And now you can decide to resolve this problem that you have. And you go on and do it without overwhelming yourself with the multitude of other problems that you might still have and perceive. That's great. You will do it again in that future now moment. But right now, after this call, you could resolve just one of your problems. Just one. Pick one. And resolve it in the now present moment when it comes. And then another one. And then another one tomorrow. One by one, day by day. And you will shift yourself from that frequency of survival, lack, deficiency, and some of those other states into excellence, self-mastery, high levels of performance, self-love, and ultimate transcendence of your life. But the key to that is the presence that you represent, wherever you are. So whatever it is that you're doing, my friend, no matter the line of your work, your social contribution, I'm inviting you to be present, being in the moment with your kids, with your loved ones, with your friends, with your clients, with your customers, with this person at the checkout. No matter what you are, no matter what you do to make the magic happen, no matter what it is that you chose to do as a person for society, you got this. And one of the ways to excel at being yourself is to be very present indeed. And the moment it becomes your second nature and then first nature, that state of flow will upgrade your entire life altogether. It literally becomes a lifestyle to be so present, so focused, so diligent, so you. And I already thank you for it. I am already so happy for you. Because even by hearing those words, you are already making it happen. Perhaps you even chose to tune into this recording, to join us here in the future, so that you can make the impossible possible in your very own life. That's why I'm so happy for you already. And when it comes to this aspect of being that unique individual that you are, in divine duality, individual, I'm inviting you to think well of yourself. For that is one of those base foundations. If you will not think well of yourself, those other people might reflect it back onto you. Because the signal comes from within. You just broadcast it and it comes back through other people. So whenever those other people are doing something or saying something that hurts, I'm inviting you to look within. Why would you need that experience? Will you allow for it to throw you off balance? It's a choice to feel hurt in many cases, especially when it comes to language. People say letters and we feel hurt. It's like magic. People say letters and we feel hurt if we choose that. And it can throw us off our presence and balance. We suddenly get emotional. We might get triggered. And as we do so, we lose our presence. And suddenly well, suddenly we become a completely different person. Very often reason goes out of the window and we become overly emotional. And in that overly emotional state, we can say things and do things that we later regret because we've lost our presence, because somebody said letters and we chose to act emotionally on those letters. So I'm inviting you to be very mindful, as we call it, very present in your conversations. Because what I'm talking about is a skill that can be learned. It really can. This is this notion of personal mastery that we are talking about here. And even if that notion is not on your horizon just yet, then we are talking here about shifting you, my friend, from survival, anxiety, stress, into at least a reasonable level of peace and composure. And that composure, emotional composure, is such a vital piece for pretty much everybody. Parents, social workers, business people, sports people. That emotional composure in a given moment is paramount. So hey, AK, I'm inviting you to tell us a bit more about how important it is actually for sports people to be emotionally present and composed when a split second can make a difference between winning and losing a match.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, you said it, it's that important. It's crucial. Learning how to regulate your emotions. Because the thing is that emotions are to be experienced, not thought about. Okay, this is very crucial to understand because, even though as a society we say there's like good and bad emotions, I don't necessarily agree with that term. I would say more so like light and shadow emotions. They're all emotions, which I also call energy in motion. And it's up to us to understand how to truly channel them. Just like you were saying, whether it's through conversations, whenever we allow those emotions to consume us, especially those what we call negative emotions, that's when all this like I get bad things happen in a way because we are consumed by them. But if we just, we experience them. The word acceptance comes to mind. Experience, accepting, embracing them. All spectrum of your emotions. There's no bad and good ones. It's just they're all energy. And you can use them all for, growth, for better self-improvement, to truly and again to the whole point, which is to stay in the present moment. And then shifting on here is there's another uh, moment you spoke about, which is what I call identity. Which is the way I would put it. Who you see is who you become. And I actually just had this conversation the other day with Linda. About identity being a story we tell ourselves about who we are. And if I remember correctly, you were talking about the environment factor, right? When someone else says something to you and then you start believing it. This is what I call, if I put it in more practical terms, dependent identity. When you base your beliefs on what other people tell you. Or if you base your beliefs on, results, like when you have a performance-based identity, right? On what you do in your life as a man, as a basketball player, basing your whole self-worth on what you provide, which is kind of like what we're trying to talk about today anyways, right? Like it's the same in the game of basketball. Many players base their identity based on how well they perform, And then the third part is that dependent identity, again, is like based out of ego. Is often we're trying to, go after things based on our ego. For example, if I give you, in terms of sports, in terms of the game of basketball, would be a lot of players go into playing the game for money, for, being the MVP, or fame or status, or all kinds of things that are based out of ego, which are not necessarily bad, but it's a problem when we base our whole identity on those, right? So again, practically, if you want to turn that around, you go for what I call independent identity. An independent identity, right? So who you see is who you become. And an independent identity is based out of self-beliefs, not what other people tell you. An independent identity is based on values, not results. So no matter what performance you give, you keep the same values, and that's a strong, centered, grounded identity, right? And then finally, which is the whole key here, an independent identity is based out of love, not ego, right? So really loving what you do, the passion, the joy, that's doing it just for the sake of doing it without wanting something in return. That's what I call the unconditional love, right? When you have that unconditional love, that, you know, just literally doing something for somebody else, or just playing the game of basketball the way it is in my scenario, you know, living life, helping other people, whatever the case may be. When you have that unconditional love, when you have that independent identity based out of love, then you do it just for the sake of doing it without wanting or expecting anything in return at all.
I hear you. And that would also be that state of presence, right? This lack of expectation. Or expectation can be a tricky thing to handle, let's say. And, now you've heard it from a professional athlete, just how much it takes to be excellent at something. And I'm inviting you, my friend, to consider what it is that you could be doing in your very own life to excel in who you are and what you do. Yes, there is an aspect of emotional composure, accepting those emotions as they transpire, letting them flow through you responsibly, yes, and then still bringing yourself back to the present moment and choosing whether you want to be affected long-term by those emotions or whether it's time to move on. And that choice we can make every single day, several times, many times over indeed. So it also happens in sports and in life that some people, those other people offer us opportunities for growth. Better players, they offer us opportunities for growth. A demanding boss offers us opportunities for growth. Unruly kids offer us opportunities for growth, and so on and so forth. And we can be resentful about it, or we can embrace the challenge. And there is a lot to be said about that. Because the moment we change our intention from it's happening to me towards it's happening through me, for me, by me, that changes the game altogether. And now we can excel. Now we can choose to be better. Now we can be a better coworker, a better sportsperson, a better partner, a better parent, and so on and so forth. Because we can wield that power of choice again. The world really stops happening to us. And in this new paradigm, we get to decide how good we get. And how cool is that? How cool is that? How wonderful that you, my friend, get to choose the level of your own excellence and performance and joy and love, including self-love. It's down to you. Nobody else can do it for you. Those people can inspire you. They can point towards certain aspects of life. Yes, they can. But you are the captain of your soul. You are the one person who can make things change. And it's best done when you are not under the influence of emotions. It's best done. Avoid making big decisions on a high or even on a low, because those decisions might not be the right decisions for you. So it's always better to wait through that emotional wave, let it pass, and only then make that big choice. There is also something to be said about how that state of survival is based on many untapped emotions that we have chose to keep in rather than express. And they're just buzzing there in the background. Unsaid words, unresolved anger, unmet sadness, and so on and so forth. Those emotions might still be there, waiting to be expressed. And until they are expressed fully, you might still feel that there is still something there causing you to slow down, make lesser choices. And so I'm inviting you that now, armed with that knowledge, you either choose to experience responsibly, of course, those emotions that you put aside in the past, so they can flow through you and once and for all set you free. And if you choose that, find a professional person who can help you with this process. That embracing presence, that can help you be yourself, meet those big energies that we call emotions, and emerge refreshed, renewed on the other side. Intact, or actually, dare I say it, improved. Because those buzzing in the background emotions are no longer there. And there is freedom in that. There is emotional freedom in that. And that also helps you, by the way, stay present in the current moment. Because those buzzing emotions are no longer present. They stop running you. You run them when you want it. That's the level of excellence we are talking about here. You choose your emotional states. Yes, they can happen randomly as well, and it happens for a reason, perhaps. But the moment you resolve those unmet emotional states of the past, you open a gate to a really bright future. And that's why, for example, so many trainings in the world of finance and sports, to use those simple examples, are based on emotional competence. There are companies that even if you are a really accomplished investor and you get hired by that company will not allow you to touch $1 of their money until you go through and succeed in an emotional competence course and training. That's how important it is that we are emotionally competent, that we self-regulate well. It's so important that we self-regulate well and we make the best decisions daily. And we aren't under the influence of emotions that can cause us to make a lesser choice. Because that lesser choice can cost you a match, a basketball match. It can cost you a career. It can cost you hundreds of millions of dollars if you are an investor. Imagine for a moment some investors making highly emotional decisions and then losing hundreds of millions of dollars. Right? Perhaps you would want to avoid that. If you are running a company for investors, that's why those companies help their staff and their own investors to be so emotionally competent. Because it's a skill set for life. It's applicable across the board in your personal relationships, professional relationships, parenting, and otherwise. Once you can wield your own emotions, this is where life gets good. This is where you are actually holding the steering wheel of your own life. And the life doesn't run you, you run with life. And so I'm super happy for you already, because even if you're hearing this message, it means that you are ready. You have that opportunity to make that choice, to be the best person that you can, to make those better choices, self-regulate well, be really competent in what you do, and play your highest game. Pardon the pun. So when it comes to playing that highest game, AK, what is it that you had to overcome in order to become top player?
That message really spoke to me, and this message came to me while you were speaking of playing the game of life, or playing the game of basketball, or playing the game of business for growth, not to chase results. Like this is like so powerful. Like this, I think that actually aligns with the question you just asked me, because once I started understanding, then this is like the whole point. The way Kobe Bryant, one of my favorite players of all time, always used to say, I play to learn something. I play to figure things out, to grow, to evolve, that's like the key there. So it's the same. And I started to understand it's literally the same. Basketball, sports, business, life, whatever. That's the key. Always growing, accepting, embracing the moment. And funny thing, that story came to me of a Chinese farmer. I'm not sure how many of you heard it before, but it goes like this. So I'll just quickly share it. Of the story of a Chinese farmer, his horse, and his son. Okay, there used to be this Chinese farmer who, lived with a boy and a horse. And one day, a horse ran away, right? And the neighbors came knocking on the door. The farmer opens up the door and they go, "Oh, this is such a bad luck. This is so bad that this happened to you. We are so sorry." And this wise Chinese farmer replies, "Maybe." Then another week passes by, and that horse that ran away comes back with 7 wild horses. And again, the neighbors come knocking on the door, and the farmer opens up and they go, "Oh, this is so amazing that this happened. Now you have 8 horses. What a good luck," they said, right? "What a good luck. This is brilliant, so good." And the Chinese farmer goes, "Maybe." And another week passes by, and his son plays with one of these wild horses, and he falls on the floor and breaks his leg, right? And again, the neighbors came in, knocking, come knocking on the door, and they'd be like, "Oh, this is such a bad luck that this happened. This is so bad. We are so sorry to hear that," And the Chinese farmer responds, "Maybe." And then another week passes by, right? And there's a general from the war that's running around there, comes recruiting for young boys to help in the army. And obviously he sees his son being a cripple, and he's like, "Oh, I'm not going to take your son, he can't help me." And then again, his neighbors come in knocking on the door saying, "Oh, this is such a good luck, you must be so happy. This is so great. This is amazing." And again, the Chinese farmer goes, "Maybe." Right? So the whole point I'm trying to make with this story is that we often judge moments good or bad. Right? We say this is good, this is bad. They're just moments, right? As long as you use that to play the game of life for growth rather than judging what is or what isn't. And I feels like, yeah, this story just kind of complements the messages I'm trying to say here. So yeah, To sum it all up, when you ask me that question, growth is the key, not the results.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I love it. I love it. That's exactly, by the way, what distinguishes people from that part of our society, our friends who are still in the survival mode. Because when one is in a survival mode, it's quite difficult to think of growth. It's just this paradigm is not there. One is trying to survive daily. So the notion of excellence or growth is just not available. However, like we said, we've already pointed out a few tools that one can use to shift oneself from that state of survival and into that growing, loving energy of excellence. And what I would add here also is that non-attachment, practicing what we call non-attachment to what is happening to us, through us, by us, can be transcendental to one's progress. Once we realize that it is important somehow for us to experience something that we are experiencing because we might have present it to ourselves. If it's happening, it means that we have chosen it on some level. And now it's a matter of what it is that we're going to do about it. So it's all applicable in sports, in business, in life, at work, in parenting, and so on. Presence, flow, non-attachment, playfulness, I would even call it, emotional regulation, and emotional composure. Even just these can already help people across the world reach those higher states of being and awareness, enjoyment of life, enjoyment of everyday life and existence. And should you choose that, my friends, this is also where AK's Academy is open. If you want to practice in practical terms that state of flow, learn about it, then AK can help you with that. This is where you can excel at the game that you play and be the very best that you can. AK, can you help us with this? Would you share a few words about that?
Would you mind elaborating a little bit more?
Okay, I'm conscious of the time here. So if I've asked you to sum up how you can help a pro or amateur player to embrace his game or her game on a whole new level by joining that academy that you've created, how can you help them the most?
Well, by mastering the mental, emotional, and spiritual side of themselves and of their game.
Oh, I like the sound of that. I like the sound of that. And what AK just unraveled here, this is very applicable in every area of life. Such level of mastery can help you in every area of life indeed. AK applies it to sports, at least at this time. And I'm inviting you, my friend, to play your highest game possible. You, my friend, who is listening to us, watching us at this time, please set your sights on your highest game, knowing that it's possible to be that kind of a person that you always wanted to be and beyond. And on that note, I'm going to pass my mic lovingly over to you, Linda. Thank you.
Thank you, Konrad and AK. That was wonderful. I wrote down so many insights of ways that we can embrace and surrender and live that life. And this is a great segue into our next segment. And what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be shifting the stage to the gentleman, And we're going to have a panel discussion. And what we're going to do is two things. We are going to be speaking to what do women do that sometimes hurt men? And we are also going to discuss what do women do well that support men. So we're going to do a compare contrast. And so we will start with the very first question. And how I'd like to do this is I'm going to ask the question. If you'd like to answer it, just put your hand up with the icon and I'll call on you. And each of the questions are designed that one or more people can answer. So if it speaks to you, raise your hand and answer. And if you don't have something, that's okay too, because again, we talked about how this isn't going to be performance. We're here to have conversation and bring awareness. And so speak as you're called to. That's the only request that I have. Be authentic in who you are. Okay. So
just before we dive into that, sorry to
yes,
disrupt you there, Linda. I just want to kind of introduce, the next speakers,
that's right.
if I may so call it. Yeah. So the next two are going to be Linda and Mick. Okay. So Linda Tilson and Mick Rutias. And I guess Linda already mentioned the things that you're going to be speaking about, so there's no need for me to introduce that. But I would like to take a moment just to kind of to introduce the two speakers. Okay, so Linda is, a friend of mine, a behavioral change strategist who helps people rewrite their stories, as she describes. So from my experience, she creates this powerful and very safe spaces for people to share and transform. So thank you for doing that, Linda. Very much appreciated. And the other speaker is Mick, who is also a dear friend of mine, who's actually describes himself as a spiritual life coach who guides men back into their authentic, confident, and a man with purpose. He also challenges this old ideas of masculinity and brings the truth forward. He recently also published a book, which I'll let Mick discuss more. So, Mick and Linda, take it away.
Thank you for that warm introduction there. Mick, did you want to talk about your book just a little bit?
Thanks, AK, and also thank you, Konrad, for what I was just listening to. It's really helpful, as well as Linda, for being here. Do I want to talk about the book? Well, past weeks I've been in a lot of conversations with men and women, especially, about what it means to be masculine, and I just had a lot of women complain to me about the men of nowadays, how I just hear a lot of women complain that there aren't any good men out there anymore. And I know a lot of men, and I think there's definitely a lot of them out there. It's just that for some reason there's something that's going wrong. And I decided to dive a little bit deeper into that and to look at what it means to be masculine and look at what it means to have a relationship between the masculine and the feminine, how these two dance together, and see if there were certain things that work and certain things that don't work. And I feel like I found them. And I decided to put that in the book. So thanks for mentioning it, AK. I'm sure I'll when we start going and this conversation develops, I feel like I'll be referring to the book a bit more. But this was the general why behind the book.
And this is the general why we are having this conversation, because men and women coexist and are interdependent on one another. But the only way that we can do that dance together is when we actually stop assuming and start asking the questions, so that we have an inner knowing of what needs to happen to make those relationships click, to make that dance become one that's enjoyable and that both individuals look forward to. And so the very first question that I'm going to put out of the gate here, because I think it's really important, is what is something a woman has done for you that made you feel truly seen or valued.
I like that question. I think this is definitely it's going to depend. I think every man here or woman here will have a different answer to that question, because we all feel seen and heard and appreciated in different ways. And for me, if I make it personal, I felt seen and heard and understood by a woman in that very personal way. You know, I have this way that I like to be seen, and when a woman is aware of that and taps into that, that makes me feel appreciated. And so I think the answer to that question would be her presence, being able to be present enough to tap into my needs and what I would need in a certain moment for her to then use that and just be present. I think well, the woman that comes up for me, and I bet it will come up for everyone here, is my mom. I think mothers are very good at doing that, and they have this maybe instinctive nature that allows them to be better at that than a dad, for example. But yeah, I think moms. I don't know if that sparks anything for the other gents here.
I would say, if I may add, for me personally, I've delved quite deep into the topic of completeness recently. Seeing a person as complete. Not just the good stuff, not just the bad stuff, but completion. And so, when it comes to feeling seen and heard, it's the completeness of experience that I appreciate the most. So that I'm not put on a pedestal just so that I'm perceived as that unbreakable, man of iron who always keeps his emotions at guard, is always picture perfect, and always shows up in the very highest way. No, I actually prefer to be seen and heard as a very natural person. On my own journey, a work in progress, some ups, some downs, but overall, that's where I really feel that, yes, this is working. Somebody who is a good reflector, they reflect well. Yeah. That which I do well and that which I don't do well either, as well. But there is nothing better than some external feedback at times, both on a good side and on a good side, right? That feedback is so precious, so it can take us out of our heads, and suddenly we have that extra voice coming to us externally from a person saying, are you seeing what I'm seeing? Can you see what I see? And that's very precious indeed. And so I thank you so much, ladies, for being such a good reflection of who we are and what we need to see and hear. I have to say that you are excellent at it. You really are. Not all men appreciate that, but there are men who do. And that's a very precious gift that you offer every single time when you show us our own selves, how we are, and give us this opportunity for self-reflection too, after what is said and done. It's very precious indeed. And for me, this is this aspect of mastery of life, comprehension, playing our roles well, in the best of ways. When you offer that loving, embracing space, you say things as you see them without judgment, and offer us that opportunity for grace, reflection, self-betterment, making perhaps better choices, being more expansive in our way of being and thinking and feeling. And for that, I really thank you, all of you, and every single one of you as well. Thank you so much for all those moments and those conversations that you had with us, that you are having with us, and that you will still have with men and boys of this world. I thank you all so much for all those moments also where you didn't get a thank you. There might have been some moments, but I thank you for those moments also. You are also seen. You are also heard. You are also very much valued and appreciated. This relationship goes both ways. And so I thank you also for this opportunity for us to play this game of completeness here, so that we can reflect back onto each other whom we are, what those other people see in us, and through that we find that grace, expansion, and completeness. And I'm loving this question, Linda.
I'm loving hearing all of the answers. I want to actually reflect back to what I heard all of you say. And so, Mick, you mentioned presence was important. Konrad, you mentioned that completion and reflection are important. And I've got one other person here that would also like to share. RJ, what else can you add to this great list that we're starting?
I'd have to say, allowing space, without judgment. Honestly, a lot of times as partners, as spouses, we want to say something, but we may be worried about, are we going to hurt the person's feelings? Or is what I'm going to say being going to be taken to offense, right? Is it going to hurt the person I'm talking to? And especially and I'm thinking about my wife here, obviously, and it's something we had to learn together because we have been through the space of speaking our minds and that conversation turning into something volatile, right? So I think, like I said, allowing the space without judgment to speak our minds freely. Of course, you want to take into consideration what you're going to say to or about the person you're going to say it. But at the same time, um, a lot of couples, they say, "Oh, I don't argue with my partner." It's probably because you're not speaking your mind. A, because you're not free to speak your mind, or you're afraid of what that conversation is going to turn into, and therefore you may not be living your true life or living your true self because you're always in that fear mode, right? I don't want to turn this into an argument, so I'll just hold it in. And that's not good for anybody. It's not good for our other partner. You're not productive. You're not achieving anything. You're not moving forward. You're staying in this stagnant position because you're so afraid to just speak your mind freely. And that's a give and take process, right? And like I said, with my wife and I, we had to learn it. So, spouses out there, partners, you're going to have to learn how to be able to speak your mind, but at the same time, consider what you're saying and who. So that was my thought.
Oh, I love the thought that you shared. What comes to mind is you mentioned two things. You said that, you know, being able to talk to someone because you don't want to hurt them or anger them, you know, but then you're also speaking to, when you don't say things, because if a person or a couple were to say that, hey, we don't have any arguments. You're right. That means there's some things probably not being said because, relationships are all about the agreements, the disagreements, and everywhere in between. And it doesn't make sense to strive for the perfect relationship where there aren't any disagreements or arguments because then people aren't living in their authentic way, is the way that I would view what you've just shared. Um, and so what you just said there really leads us into the next question that I have. And it's all about, what do you wish women understood about, how their tone, timing, or delivery impact your willingness to engage. So let's say she wants to bring something to you, how is that going to play into things?
So I'll take up right there as well. Seeing as it was on my, topic of conversation. It just, look, we want to be able to speak our mind without judgment, but at the same time, look, not every woman is like this, but we put women put men on the defensive, especially when they come at them, why did you do this? Why did you not do this? In a tone that's, challenging, right? You make your partner feel like a child almost because you're on top of them on something they should or should not have done. Um, and it puts our back up instantly, right? It puts us in a place of, again, that fight or flight. Now, am I going to be, oh, I'm sorry, I really mean, didn't mean that. Or are we going to be like, look, man, why are you on me about this? So now it turns it into that volatile topic that I was talking about earlier. So, again, coming at it with a place of non-judgment. Yes, I may have done something wrong. I'm not saying, I'm not perfect. I get it wrong on lots of occasions. But the question is, how can you approach it with the consideration of the person you're speaking to, right? Um, okay, yeah, maybe she wants to speak to me about doing it better next time. Or, maybe getting to it now instead of saying, okay, well, you didn't do this, right? So how do we get to that without being aggressive or judgmental?
So how does she do that so that she's not putting you on defense? So she's not saying, by the way, you failed to do this thing, you didn't show up. How could she do it that would make you open and receptive to having the conversation? And
Yeah,
in
and
the
again,
best instance.
yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. It's not coming from trying to come at it from a non-judge or non-challenging space, right? So, is there a reason you didn't? Is a way to approach it, right? Rather than going, hey, you didn't do this. Is there a reason you didn't do it? So now it gives me the opportunity to speak to whatever failing may have been. Maybe it's just I didn't have time. Maybe I just got home and it's been 10 minutes and I've been in the washroom or whatever. Like there's always, not always, but there can be justification for why I haven't done it yet.
Mm.
Right.
Mhm.
So these things do come up, and it's a way of approaching it. So again, you're not challenging, you're not attacking the person. So now there's not that fight or flight response right from the start.
Yeah, so really it's when she comes in curious to have a conversation and not just jumping to a conclusion and really asking you more questions around what was really going on, and and allowing you to speak without getting interrupted, without shutting you down. Um, Coming at it with, how can we work through this? What do we need to discuss? How can we do better? So that's the tone that she would come in an ideal situation.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you. That
Okay.
sums it up nicely.
Okay, we got two more hands. Everyone's excited to jump in here. So, AK, you're next.
Yeah, so what came to me when I was listening to RJ is, the well, actually, there was this quote, or not more so a quote, more so, I guess, a task. Let's put it that way. I think that's a good word for it. I feel like for men, our mission or in our purpose in a way is to master lust, and for women, it is to master emotions. Okay, that spoke to me very powerful the other day, and for a woman who's very, I guess, who've mastered emotion, or I guess she's on this journey of doing so. She will read the room. Because women have a very good intuition, and if they are in control of their emotions as well, then if a man comes home and he's all tired and grumpy, like that's not the moment to pick a fight with him. It's not a moment to say something in regards to whatever it is that you're trying to say, because you see right? So, and that comes with like this emotional control, emotional intelligence in a way that also Konrad spoke about today, right? So yeah, I think that that is my addition to your question.
Okay. Mick, I think you were next, followed by Konrad.
Thanks for sharing that, guys. I love the question because I think it's a very good question, and at the same time, I'm willing to argue that it might be the wrong question. Yes, I think it's good to be aware of it as a woman, that women are just more naturally inclined to act from a sudden outburst of energy and an emotion that they're feeling, right? It's normal. Something happens. You might feel emotional, or you might feel unsafe because of it. Something might happen, for example, in your relationship. For example, he didn't do the dishes, right? That's the most basic one that we always get back to as an example where arguments, arise. From a certain perspective, the woman just doesn't feel safe in the relationship. Either she feels like she's not good enough, either she feels there's some emotional trauma, might be a very big word, but there's some underlying principle. And I don't think women can help but turn to their emotions and share them. And yes, there is different ways of sharing them, but I'd actually be willing to challenge that it's up to a man to regulate a woman in that sense. I think when a man can be grounded enough within the relationship or within himself, it doesn't matter how she responds because he'll be able to ground her back into it. I think for women, it's almost default to get into that emotional state and to have trouble with having control over your emotions, like you said, AK. Like it's their task maybe to master that. And I think it's that task for men as well. It's about dancing with the feminine. And yeah, maybe sometimes you come home from a brutal day of work and your wife's there screaming at you that you didn't do the dishes, but then it's the invitation to the man. How will you deal with that? All right, this is what's happening. Are you going to approach that from the way of life is happening to me? Oh, this, my wife and I have such a bad day. Or, are you going to be happening to life and say, all right, this is what's happening. What am I going to do about that? How can I show up as a man within this relationship to make my woman feel more safe or to help her emotions calm down? And I think men can do that by groundedness, as well as developing solid communication techniques and just understanding what you can say and what you can't say to women that will, possibly enhance these emotions and have them erupt or kind of make her feel safe again. And I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Konrad and see what he has to say, and then I will come back with my thoughts.
Awesome. Thank you, Linda. I found out over time that it's not even what you say, but how you say it that matters. Yes, the information might be there, but how you convey it is way more powerful than the very letters themselves. And that can apply in so many situations. And perhaps there is something to be said that when it comes to communication, the 70-20-10 rule applies. 70% of communication is non-verbal. It's just body language. It's the way you move, the way you are, the way you stand, the way you sit. This is what people perceive super quickly. Within a split second, people make those judgments about me, you, and everybody else by the way our body language is. Then we have the 20% that is tonality of our voices, which can carry so much heaviness or lightness, invitation or resentment. And this is where that control over our voice and emotions is so crucial, because the same sentence can be said with anger, but also with invitation, also with love, and with joy too. The very same sentence. And it's going to be picked up very differently, depending on that emotional tonality attached to those words and letters. And then there is the remaining 10%, the actual words that are being chosen and used. Imagine if this theory were to be true and only 10% of our communication relied on words themselves, however important they might be, then the actual bulk volume of work is in being a master of your body, your emotions, and your voice. How cool is that? Just these three things can already massively improve and upgrade your relationships. Just that. Body language, tonality of your voice, emotions. Even if you're not a public speaker, even if you're not very eloquent, it doesn't nearly matter. We know those people who are so popular in various arenas, whether it's sales, dating, work. They don't seem to say much, but the way they are does the talking. The way they are does the talking. So this is another beautiful invitation to step into that space of personal mastery and excellence, because we can all choose right here, right now, to be excellent in the way that we are. Our bodies, our language, our emotions, how we express them and to whom. We have a choice over that. And I also sense that, it's really sometimes, let's say, difficult to have a conversation with somebody in a high emotional state. And it doesn't matter whether it's a man or a woman. Because when emotions run high, people can become unreasonable. And when it comes to those situations, yes, sometimes perhaps it's needed, but in many times it's not. One can have a more civilized conversation. And that communication is so important. Please don't do this. Please don't do this if you can, because it reminds me of something hurtful. Perhaps I got hurt in the past. And the way you, whoever you might be, are at the moment presenting a certain issue is reminding me of somebody else completely. So as a shortcut, please don't say it like this. I see you, I hear you, I value your message. And yes, this is on me. This is my responsibility. Whatever is being said and done and how, it reminds me of something. So the work is on me. But as a partial shortcut and bridge, I can ask that person and let them know that something that is happening is reminding me about something that is causing that high emotional reaction. And before I deal with it for good, at the very least, I can communicate that what this other person is doing and how is somehow causing me distress. And it's actually not helping the whole situation. And having said that, maybe just to wrap it up here as well, I think it's becoming very obvious that communication is so important, right? We have some mind readers, but not everybody is a good mind reader just yet. Therefore, it's way better to say something. It's better to communicate it than leave it unsaid. That's also why I'm inviting people that I work with, for example, to say that which goes without saying. Because in many cases, we have those unspoken truths sitting there in the background, lingering in the background. Oh, you should know that. Oh, isn't that obvious? I thought you knew that. And it can go on for years or decades. I thought you knew that. Wasn't it obvious? Well, no, it wasn't. Because my perception of that experience from years ago was very different to yours. So your truth might not be exactly matching my truth about something that we experience together. And experience shows that we all have our very own personal directory, and let's say a certain way of defining everything that we perceive. When it comes to our dictionary, we are very unique. Every single word, family, safety, love, abundance, and so on and so forth, we have a super specific definition. So sometimes we can be using the same words, but they mean to us something else altogether. So when it comes to this timing of delivery, timing delivery of a given conversation, it's also very worthy of remembering, I feel, knowing that the other person's definitions of every single word used might be very different to ours. And suddenly there is grace in those conversations. There is grace because we realize, oh, perhaps we do actually agree. It's just the words aren't quite matching. Perhaps I can use a different word, just like we did with AK earlier on. For him, one of the keywords is surrender. And it's a beautiful word. For other people, it can be acceptance. That's what activates them differently. So it's also good, by the way, to establish that dictionary in a given relationship. What does it mean to you when I say family? What does it mean to you when I say financial freedom? What does it mean to you when I say productivity? What does it mean to you when I say organization? How would you like for our life to be organized? And what does it mean to you actually? And suddenly we build that bridge that makes the relationships exquisite, beautiful, complete. And on that note, I'm passing my mic over to you, Linda.
So to briefly summarize, what I was hearing is that we need to be responsible for how we bring ourselves into our conversations. We need to remember that communication is something that needs to happen because absence of it means that we're expecting another person to read our mind. We also have to remember that how we use one word, it might not be the same as what somebody else is using. And so find the commonality and remembering that only 10% of our communication is at play, whereas 70 is nonverbal, 20 is the tone that you're using. And when you remember all of those things, we're committing to show up in a way that we honor ourselves, we honor the people that we're speaking to. And when we can do that with authenticity and honesty, we're going to get there a lot quicker because, what Mick had said is, I'm going to challenge this. And so what he was advocating for is, yes, women could come in and bring all these things there. They could be very emotional about things, and that isn't necessarily a problem. And so how the man chooses to take that emotional state, those things being said, the timing maybe being right or wrong. It's like, well, how can I help you? How can we help each other? You do that, things become a lot more cohesive, and that's how the best relationships are formed. And it's honestly how you stay connected to another person because you want to. When everyone takes their responsibilities and roles and shows up accordingly. This conversation here is just the beginning, the tip of the iceberg. I'd love to go more into it. However, we've got some other great, amazing speakers that are also going to be presenting. And so in interest of moving that forward, we're going to end here and we'll revisit it, I know, at another place and space. So with that, AK, could you take us to the next conversation that we're going to have?
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Linda and Mick, for this panel discussion. So our next speaker coming up is RJ Horner. He's a veteran in personal development with over 12 years of experience, and he empowers people to take ownerships of their life and choose a better, stronger path. So he's going to be speaking about what it means to be a man, and he mentioned a little bit about that in our panel discussion already. So I'll just let RJ take the mic on this one. So go ahead.
AK, thanks for that introduction. Yeah, listen, I want to invite everybody to celebrate men and boys. That's what we're here for today. So welcome to a fantastic celebration for International Men's Day. And on this day, we gather not just to celebrate men, but to reflect on what it means to be men in today's world, in our work, in our families, among our communities and peers, and within ourselves as our own beings. We're going to reflect on who we are as men, who we're expected to be, and who we can become with the right support, guidance, and inspiration. See, being a man today is not about ego, not about dominance or toughness, as we've been taught. It's about responsibility, integrity, character, and contribution. It's about who we are when no one's watching and how we lift others when everybody is watching. So let me start with a simple but deeply inspiring question. What does it mean to be a man? For generations, the answer was clear, or at least so we've been led to believe, right? Men were expected to be strong, the family provider, the protector. We took care of things, often without showing emotion, weakness, or doubt. We were supposed to know what to do and step up to do it and keep that family surviving, thriving, and not allowed to delve into deep concerning emotion, right? But the truth is, being a man is not about living up to someone else's definition. It's about defining yourself and living with your own value, right? So being a man means being courageous, getting up daily, rising, stepping up into what may come of today, not knowing what's before us, right? It's about facing our fears, not avoiding them, right? We're all going to have fears as human beings, but what we do with that fear is what defines us as a man. Are we going to shadow from it, or are we going to step forward and overcome what those fears are? So stepping up and doing what is asked for you. And I'm not going to, even let people believe that I have all of these areas mastered. It's just what I've learned about being a man. And I'm working to at least accomplish these things, even if I haven't mastered them at these, 50 some odd years of my life. Because being a man is about growth. It's about becoming a man and working to become a better. Your choices and their consequences, knowing that, look, if you are here, it's because you brought yourself here, right? The choices you've made, the decisions you've made, the actions you've taken have brought you here. But owning the consequences that come along with all of these choices that you've made. It's about dealing with life head on and with the life circumstances that we face every single day. It's about integrity, keeping your word, even when it costs you, right? Doing the right thing, knowing that that right thing is going to have those consequences that we just talked about. Just do it, but do it right. That's the goal to becoming a better man. Being a man is about compassion, right? It's being strong enough to deeply care. I remember a boss of mine, former boss. I used to say when I was at one of my worst states, I don't care. I really don't care. You know, but he pointed out to me in a not so harsh way, but a slapping way that look, if you didn't care, you wouldn't be so upset, right? In other words, that emotion hits us deep, but it's because we care about things that we care enough to take action, to do something about it. And that's what true strength is. And it's embracing that emotional side that we have, learning that here is how I react. Here's how I respond to things. But allowing those emotions and learning to live with those emotions in order to step forward. You may have heard from your peers or authority figures, look, just be a man already, right? This is a toxic belief that to be a man, you must maintain certain standards or qualifications. Never for a minute believe that because you don't meet these standards that you're not a man, but you should at least aspire to grow into them, right? Reaching for them as a daily practice. True masculinity isn't demanding you be someone you're not. It's transformation. It's about becoming a better man as a daily practice, working every day to develop who you are and who you can become. Step into that person, step into being that man. When men show up as their authentic selves, not perfect, but purposeful, they change families, they change workplaces, they change and influence their community. So let's talk about that phrase, being the man, right? It's a stigmatism that we live with. Culturally, that means being the best, the alpha, the winner. Too often being the man has been tied to status instead of competition instead of contribution. Being the man doesn't mean being better than others. It means being better for others, right? It means showing up as a leader, not a boss. You are not dominant. You are learning to work with others to help them become better. It's, being a servant, not a savior. We're not here to change the world or to demand that somebody do this over that. It's about being a mentor, not a master, right? We are working with others. We're talking about empowering with, not power over others. The measure of a man isn't what he controls. It's what he cultivates. Even if you're only leading yourself, you're leading for others. You're leading yourself, again, becoming better for others. So you might serve others. So you might make a better influence within our community or in our society as a whole. So ask yourself some questions that might help you to become a better man, to lead and to serve daily. What am I leading? Am I a parent, a family member, a coworker, business owner, or even a community leader, right? These will help define you as the person you want to become. Who am I serving? Am I leading myself, my family, my friends, clients, right? Who am I working for? And then what legacy am I building? How do I want to be known? Yes, your legacy is about what are you known for when you're gone? But what about the legacy you're leaving now? What about that person you influenced today? How are they going to think of you once you've been through their sphere of influence, right? That's what your legacy is about. That's what being the man really means. It means to become someone people aspire to exemplify. So let's talk about the stigma, the unbroken rules that still hold many men back. Look, real men don't cry, right? We've heard this one, but I'm going to tell you something. I'm a man, and yes, I cry if the emotions strike. If I get some bad news, it might hit me hard. It might, take me to a place I really don't want to go. But I allow myself to experience that, especially if there's sad tidings within the family or within friends. I had somebody, my daughter's boyfriend lost his mother recently. I'm sorry, but that's sad and emotional. It hit hard. And I allowed, for my daughter's sake, to experience that, right? Or if there's a sappy movie scene, I'm sorry, but tears start strolling down the eyes. I allow myself to experience it. And I don't think I'm any less manly because I do, right? Real men don't ask for help. I'm sorry, I'm going to challenge this one right now because asking for help is a sign of strength, not a sign of weakness. When I was at my worst, when I was at my most vulnerable, it's because of this stigmatism. I couldn't ask for help. I couldn't reach out to a doctor or to my friends for counsel. But I'm going to tell you, get it. You know what got me through it was seeking counsel because I asked for help from somebody else to see what I couldn't see, to help me see through to the next date, to the next moment. And it got me through another 10, 12 years because I asked for help. So, and then real men handle it on their own. But look, people need people. As a man, you are not alone. We are here today to tell you that you are not alone. You have a community of men who are becoming better men, who are working to support each other. We are here to talk to you today just because we believe that you can have others out there who are working with you, who are willing to give you the time of day. All you have to do is reach out and ask. So these messages of silence, generations of men, they've caused pain, isolation, even tragedy. They've made men feel less than worthy because they dared to need someone else. Well, here's the truth. Vulnerability is not a weakness. It is strength under control. When a man learns to open up, share his truth, and support others, he becomes not less of a man, but more of a man. So our men have decided to take the back burner, but I want to just throw it out there. And maybe we can have people answer this and break the stigmas. Start with one honest conversation at a time. It starts here with us. Let me ask you a challenging question. And maybe we can get one or two people to answer it here. I want you to really think about this for a moment. What belief or expectation about being a man have you carried that maybe it's time to let go? Or perhaps you've recently learned to let go that has helped you step forward as a man. So is there anybody here today? And look, if you're not open to answering that conversation, that's fine. You know what I mean? We're not asking people to step forward. I just would like to open the table if anybody's willing. So I think, Konrad, you have something to say on the matter. I'd love to hear it.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much for asking this beautiful question. Very much of a quantum question, now opening many, many, many interesting processes already. And, having done a lot of family inner work of late, working on those relationships with my parents and my extended family, I've come to realize that many of my problems, my programs, my stories aren't even mine to start with. They've been already there in the family before I was even born. People were talking a certain way, they were thinking about them a certain way, and they were recreating very similar scenarios more often than they wanted at times. And having had that opportunity to reflect on that, I've realized that I don't have to repeat those stories if I don't fancy them. I can choose better. If I can now link my own behavior and thinking to something that I see my parents, for example, do and say, and I'm thinking, oh, well, isn't that interesting? I thought these were my words. I thought it was my process. I thought this was my thoughts. But here I see it black on white, or sometimes in bright colors, that it's actually my parents who are telling themselves that story using those words. And I don't have to repeat that if I choose not to. I can create a better story for myself. But now at least I know where it's coming from. And now I realize, oh, well, isn't that interesting? I've always thought it was mine, that it's my problem. But now it turns out that no, actually it runs in the family. It seems that, those previous generations were running certain programs, as I call them, behaving a certain way, making the same choices time and time again, which is great. Okay, I love you dearly, my family. And yet I can choose to upgrade my choices. So I've decided to start doing just that. Yeah. And that actually, by the way, just to wrap it up here, that actually brought me to a lot of graceful embracement, of my parents, of my family, and at the same time, that freedom to be myself. Because I realized that I don't have to repeat those stories. I can choose better, differently. Over to you.
Absolutely. And I thank you for that. And I applaud you for that. You know what? And because, look, a lot of our thoughts, a lot of our actions are subconscious, right? They've been bred into us from the teachings we've learned between those developmental years of 2 to 5, where we've heard all of these things repeated all over again. And one of my biggest ones was from my grandparents or my grandmother, who used to say, look, children are not supposed to rise above your station. In other words, stay in your place, right? Do what you're supposed to do and you'll be all right. But look, we're talking today about becoming better, talking about becoming more, right? And we're here to say, look, you can become more. You don't have to take those words that have been ingrained in your psyche from generations past, right? We can believe that we can step forward. And that's what we're here to do today. We're here to celebrate men becoming men, right? So, gentlemen, being a man is not just a destination, it's a journey. Every day we have the opportunity to become a better man, better fathers, husbands, brothers, leaders, and friends, showing up in our community, right? How do you become a better man? You reflect daily. Did I show up with integrity today? What did I do today to improve who I am? How did I help today? Where could I have made more effort? Reflect on these things daily. Learn constantly. Seek wisdom, not just knowledge. What did I do to know, or what did I need to know to become the person I want to be? Make it a daily practice to grow and become more. Lead with empathy. Listen more, judge less. Little understanding goes a long way, right? And then don't forget the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, right? You want to be treated a certain way. Well, how about treating other people that way before you even move into that space? Build others. Invest in the next generation, right? Become better for others, but empower others to become better on their journey. Look, I'm a stepfather and I believe in making my kids better, but I'm also Uncle Rob, which is a title that's important to me. I'm leading my nephews and nieces on their journey, right? And it is their journey. No matter what, we want the best for our kids, but we have to remember this is their life. The best we can do for them is to serve them and allow them to express themselves. Becoming a better man is about becoming a better human. When we raise our standards, we raise everyone around us. And the world just doesn't need just more men. It needs more good men. Men who believe in doing what's right, even when it's hard. And that's why we celebrate International Men's Day. Not just to compete with women's progress, but to complement it, to demonstrate that our women need our men and boys to become the best they can be. Best fathers, best husbands, best neighbors, best co-workers, and those community representatives. We want to celebrate that we're better together. We want to celebrate the fathers who show up, the mentors who guide our future, the boys who dream of becoming better, the men who chose love over anger, presence over pride, and growth over comfort. So I want to talk about, in case we haven't done it today, is the 6 pillars of International Men's Day. This belief that we're trying to represent. So the 6 pillars are: number 1, to promote positive role models; number 2, to celebrate men's positive contributions to society; number 3, to focus on men's health and well-being; number 4, to highlight discrimination against men; and number 5, to improve gender relations and promote gender equality; and number 6, to create a safer, better world. And I don't want any of us to ever forget why we're doing what we're doing here with International Men's Day, recognizing it every year. Let's celebrate every man who's doing his best and every boy learning what it means to become a better man. Let's honor the men who've taught us and commit to being the men who will teach others how to be better men. Gentlemen and everyone here, remember this. Being a man isn't about power, it's about purpose. It's not about pride, it's about presence. Not about control, it's about contribution. So let's make a pledge today to live with integrity, lead with heart, and love with strength. Because when we become better men, we build a better world. So I want to thank you for being with us today on this celebration of men and boys in recognizing International Men's Day 2025. Thank you.
All right. So thank you, RJ, for this inspirational words. But now we are going to take a 10-minute break. So look at your clocks. 10 minutes from now, we're coming back and we have Marikita coming up with her presentation. So I'll see you guys in 10 minutes.